welcome to Up Close with Carlos Sang, celebrating art, entertainment, and the human spirit. Welcome to another episode of Up Close with Carlos Sang. My next guest was the winner of the Emerging Talent Award at the Evening Standard Theatre Awards back in 2018. He was the star of Hamilton and Patriots and is currently starring in London Tide at the National Theatre. It's a huge delight to be able to introduce the wonderful Jamael Westman. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much for having me.
So I feel like our mutual friend is probably one of, Charles Dickens's probably like less well-known works, and it's great to see the story, retold through the eyes of Ben Power and PJ Harvey. What was it about this script that stood out to you as an actor?
I think it was just the different strands of characters, their own particular experiences, and the fact that it was all being held by this one piece, and there was a through line for each of them. I love that kind of kaleidoscope of worlds, of different lives intersecting and interacting and colliding. That's very London for me, and whilst all being quite, very different people, all having kind of a collective struggle in a sense, a very human struggle. So that appealed to me for sure. And then, Dickens is something I'm not really familiar with, despite how renowned he is in our country, of course, or in the UK, as it were. So that was definitely one of intrigue for me to discover more. And then obviously, you have your Ben Powers, your Ian Ricksons, and your PJ Harveys, and it's kind of hard to say no in that respect. For sure, kind of leap at that. And then the National Theatre. I mean, what an incredible heritage to kind of contribute to and be a part of. But then the play itself, Eugene Wrayburn, interesting character, fascinating man, relate to the struggle in one respect, relate to his kind of angst, his inner frustration, his wringing, his desire to create, for something to happen, for change, for purpose, as he puts it in the opening scene. Definitely there. And then also just the underworld, man. The underworld of London, the impoverished, the people that are the forgotten, as it were. In times like these, we say, I know that in the book it's meant to be in the 1850s, but I feel like we haven't departed from there, or if anything, we've returned back to those times of an increasing gap between the rich and the poor. Food banks on the rise, the poverty, people just being pushed into poverty, and the rich are just getting richer. So, that feels very much, whilst the book says of our times, it's our times right now, there's a bleak timelessness or regression at play. So that appealed to me as well.
Yeah, it definitely feels really relevant, and it's great how the show sort of like pays homage to the forgotten people, as you say, and pays homage to the London Thames as well. Were you fairly familiar with our mutual friend? Did you have to do much research around Charles Dickens as well, that sort too?
I was clueless about our mutual friend, never heard of it. Knew plenty of his books, got some of his books at home. Never knew our mutual friend. Didn't know much about him, actually, if I'm honest. I'd put myself in the same category as a large swathe of the population, which is, we knew Oliver Twist. And I guess that, one of his greatest pieces speaks, and obviously Christmas Carol, but speaks to his moral compass, where he focuses. And so, in a way, I knew about him by virtue of those. My brother was actually, he did Oliver Twist once upon a time as one of Fagin's gang on the West End. So that was as much as I knew. But then in terms of the man himself and his desire for social justice, his regard for the impoverished people in the underworld, as it were, the forgotten, the left behind, and the fact that he came from poverty himself and had lots of his own personal struggles with, an alcoholic father and a man whose family was always in debt, going into the workhouses. And also the fact that he danced in both circles in terms of his success. So he came from poverty, but then because of his success in his books, he started mingling with the elite. And I can't imagine, I have some semblance of what that feels like. I didn't come from abject poverty, but I came from struggle for sure. And then, in terms of the work doing now, just kind of be in these other circles of, very wealthy people. I find that fascinating and quite difficult. And I think, aligning with Dickens in that respect. I have much more respect and alignment with him of actually, no, I won't forget where I'm from, and I won't forget the people who I represent. So yeah, not really familiar, but now a big fan.
Yeah.
Big fan of Dickens, man. I'm all here for him, man. He speaks for the most vulnerable members of society, as well as, you know, mocks and enjoys entertaining the world of the elite as well, because that's definitely in the book. But Ben Power, bless him, he focused in the condensing of the book, in the truncating of the book, he focused as well on more the strugglers, as opposed to the wannabe politicians who don't really have a moral compass and just want to be careerists, which I guess has, you know, a lot of value there. But the people who Dickens cared about were your Charlie Hexams, your Lizzie Hexams. He cared about Bella Wilfer. He cared about the people that were struggling and trying to transcend their circumstances or endure their circumstances. There's something so empowering and inspiring to see, and also tragic to see people struggle and endure struggle and feel like that's all they can do. So I pay a lot of respect to Ben Power and Dickens before him to shed a light on those people.
Yeah, it's really, really moving, and I'm so glad I got to go and see it. And you know, it really feels like such a great ensemble piece. You know, everything, you know, sort of comes together in harmony. The actors, the sets, the lighting, the music. What were those conversations like with, you know, Ian Rickson on, you know, how to, you know, bring this story to the London stage?
Ian has such a tenderness around the characters and around us as artists and as human beings in the space. There's a real care there, which I really enjoyed and reveled into, and is quite refreshing. In terms of, yeah, and so our focus in a very naturalistic sense was to kind of get into the world, get into the characters' mind states, what their wants, what their desires, what are they scared of, what's their network of people, who do they relate to the most, who do they want near them, who do they want far from, you know, all those kind of very human things. What we explored initially, continually actually throughout. And then in terms of, you know, the lighting and the set and the costume, you know, Bunny and Jack, I mean, that kind of was an incredible surprise, and we were astounded and moved, you know, because we're not really a part of that conversation as actors, but we are certainly recipients of those disciplines when we get on stage in the tech or what have you. So we were just blown away. I mean, you know, we were in a way the giddy first viewing audience members. We'd be in tech kind of, you know, if we're not on, we're watching it all unfold. I was just blown away. So just furthered our excitement and that other people would see it. Yeah, and the process with Ian was great. We all had a great time. So we've got such a lovely group of artists and people in the space. So it felt like a really safe space, a really welcoming space, and that's beautiful, and that's what you want. You know, particularly because the characters in the world that we're presenting are people that don't feel necessarily safe. So it's important that we do, and when it comes to exploring their journeys, which in many respects can be traumatic and really hard and difficult, and then sometimes, of course, really funny. But it's important that you establish a safe space to create, to explore. And so that's what definitely was present for us and has continued. And I you know, that's the thing I'm always most grateful for, is the people you do work with. And I think anyone who would say that, whether in the arts or out of it, it's like, it's not necessarily the whole thing, you know, art in a way is subjective, anyway, it's up for anyone to decide. But it's about how, you know, who you do it with and the journey of doing that. You know, you don't want to be going to work every day and you just despise everyone. That's not the one. It's not the one. And, you know, some people maybe have to endure that. And, you know, I my heart bleeds for them. I count myself a very lucky person. I come to work and I know that I'm working with people that I've got a lot of love for, man. That we can take risks, we can open ourselves up, knowing that we're in a safe space and that we've got each other.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like watching the show, I was amazed by how, you know, those like 3.25 hours just like flew by, you know, it just didn't feel like it at all. And, you know, it's interesting as well, you know, watching it because, you know, Dickens, you know, paints such a vivid portrait of Victorian London in his book. But I was quite surprised by how minimalist the set was, you know, used very
Yeah.
much, but yet it still manages to really fill the Lyttleton Theatre as well.
Mm.
What has it been like, you know, playing to that space? And, you know, why do you think the Lyttleton, you know, lends itself so well to this story?
Well, I think in terms of the creation and how it's been, I think, the almost Pross type viewing is great. The way that I've seen it, it's almost like a film. It's so epic. It's so cinematic in its display, and I think that's down to the genius of Ian, Bunny, and Jack with just really getting what the set will be and how it presents these characters. So for me, I feel like the characters are conjured. Like you open the book, and then there's the hologram before you of this character in the world, and I love the minimalist set because it basically leaves so much more, from how to articulate this. So it relies on the actors, it relies on the characters. We inhabit that character, which in a sense, the world is conjured further from. You open the book, you see the character tells you what world they're in by how they are, what state they're in, what they're articulating. And so then because of that minimalist space, the rest is your imagination. You can kind of see the pub, you can see the chambers, you can imagine those things. I think that's what I think is really great about minimalism, is that it implores, it desires of the audience to really start engaging with the world, as opposed to spoon feeding, oh, this is it, this is what it looks like, this is the set, which, lots of great theatre does that, and, not to, push that aside. But yeah, I really revel in something that just demands a little bit of the audience, or that says, okay, well, the world maybe in a way is found in these characters, so that's why you lean into that, and the rest you'll get. If someone's struggling, or someone says, oh, my father in a single filthy boat along the Thames, your imagination goes there, you see it. If it's just a plank, it doesn't matter. I can see the boat, I can hear the sounds of the boat. I love that, man. Oh, so stimulating, so exciting. So I'm getting gassed off it myself. I haven't even seen the thing, I just see it a little bit. So yeah, I think there's a lot of power in minimalism because it empowers the audience's imagination.
Yeah, it's a really, really cool piece. I mean, this is the first time that you've worked at the National Theatre, and it's definitely still one
Yeah.
of our most, prestigious institutions. Has the experience, working there, felt different to, other theatres that you've worked in, and are audiences perhaps different at all too?
Um, Hard to say. Hard to say about the audiences being different because the piece is different. So, well, in a way, yeah. I mean, the National Theatre obviously has its regular goers, so there's that for sure. Whereas, I mean, have I worked in a million theatres? No, but maybe it's different to the Royal Court theatres because I think people know or expect something a little different from the Royal Court, and so therefore it kind of appeals to certain people who like the theatre. And then again, it changes maybe if you're doing a musical on the West End, such as Hamilton. But at the same time, it's all London. It's all London, and then maybe people are making trips up. From around the country and globally as well. I'd say people might come in as one thing, but hopefully in everything they see, based off of the particular show they're seeing, they come out different. They come out as a slightly different version of themselves. So it doesn't really, I mean, for me, I don't really, well, I'd definitely love more diversity in theatres. I love more representation. I'd love for the London I know and love to be in more theatres. The argument is it's incrementally happening bit by bit. Obviously, of all things that are right in the world, we want that to happen far quicker. And, there's conversations and things are happening, things are moving. The question is, how do we further invite people in? One way is definitely not raising ticket prices. It's definitely lowering and offering, just for those that would otherwise never go to the theatre, there's a potential that they will if it feels more affordable because everything's more expensive these days. It's an uphill struggle, really, because everything's more expensive in London. And so obviously prices are going to be more expensive. It's a bit of a vicious cycle. What was the question? Sorry, I got caught up in...
I think you answered my question actually. Yeah, but I'm just going further from that as well.
Yeah.
You know, obviously you do have those regular National Theatre goers, as you mentioned as well. But your show is very much, you know, a takedown of those upper classes. You know, you're making, you know, a huge, you know, statements about, you know, the social class system that exists in Britain as well.
Mm.
Is it quite scary, you know, presenting, you know, these, you know, statements, you know, to an audience who are perhaps, you know, from those upper echelons in society?
No, I personally, I think the play is so deftly done. It doesn't feel like a radical challenge to the status quo. I think it's an observation. It's a provocation to a degree, but I don't think it's like sticking it on every audience member. Like, what are you doing with this situation? How are you contributing? If that was the case, I might feel a little bit more nervous, but also maybe a bit more enlivened. You know, I'm like, no, this is it. You know, giving a real political statement. In this case, it's you know, we're going as far as Dickens went, and I think in many respects that exploration, delving into the lives of those that maybe we don't relate to, or we know we live around and among, but don't quite know the intricacies of their lives. I think there's something to be said for that. You know, good theatre in a way is, I think, a bit more like a Trojan horse. I don't feel like you want to know you're getting addressed with something. You want to kind of welcome something in, leave, and then go, wait a second, there's a battle going on inside me, a conflict, conflict of how I feel or how I see myself or how I see the world. What is that? Because, you know, at large, we are all in a bit of conflict, you know, whether on a personal level, on a societal level. There are wars going on. So, you know, that those are the kind of gradations to something much larger. But I think it starts with, you know, a little idea or a little window into someone else's life. I think fundamentally, we live in a more apathetic world. I think apathy is for the desire of peace in a way, or desire of avoiding conflict. Empathy is to feel someone else's joy, feel someone else's pain, and then from getting in someone else's shoes, seeing the world through their lens and going, is there what they're going through right? Is there something that I align with? Is there something that needs to change? And that could just be yourself, but you could also feel actually it's the environment we're in. And I think the environment that Liz, the Hexams are in, that they're all in that time of great depravity, of great wealth, and then great poverty, we are in right now, more so, increasingly every day. And that's not right. Some of the last lines in the play are about love. Now, love is not, oh, it's just this romantic ideal between two people. Love is the foundation for all forms of social justice. To love is to respect, to be committed, to know, to trust. We don't have a lot of those things in our society right now. We're lacking those things, desperately lacking those things, on a personal, maybe for some people, but also on a very societal level. So they're very intertwined. The social justice element, the poverty, the wealth, the riches, and love. Love is a radical act. Love is not happy-go-lucky, happy endings. Maybe even Charles Dickens didn't quite connect the dots in terms of social justice and love. Maybe he thought they were separate things. One's for the mind, very cerebral. One is for the heart, for the carnal elements of ourselves. They're both one and the same, because as with the human being, the cerebral and the heart are very intertwined. They're connected. They're constantly at odds with one another. So I think there's a way in which, yes, social justice, love, and all those things come into play. And it doesn't matter where you're from, what upper echelons you're from, or, you know, what impoverished circumstances you're from. We all share in this planet. We all share in this city, London in this particular instance. We're all sharing this one life that we got, man. Boy, oh no. You can either live apathetically and go, not my problem, or you can go, no, I'm a human being, because you're denying yourself if you deny others, really. I could keep going, but I think I'll end it there.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, absolutely. I mean, you've done a lot of political work recently. You know, with like Hamilton, obviously was very political. Patriots was very political as well. And were you always interested in these sorts of subject matters and, you know, taking on roles which might be perhaps controversial to some too?
I don't know. In a way, I think they find me. I don't really go. I just am who I am. I'm charged in that way. I don't know. Was it a choice? One could argue that it's circumstance, chance, and like I was born as a mixed heritage individual, and one part of my life, one part of my family is Irish, the other is Jamaican, and already from the get-go, then there's political elements to that. What is Irish in this country? What's a Jamaican in this country? What's the history of both of those countries in Britain? So I kind of wasn't a choice. It kind of was just chance. And that's, everyone comes into this world by chance. And then it's the environment. I mean, the family I'm born to, the spaces I enter. What do they say? Politics is everywhere. To be an actor is a political act. To go on stage as you are is a political act, because it could be that you're there out of privilege. Could be out of there because you didn't have any privilege and then you managed to get there anyway. So many elements that make it political. That being said, I don't know. Did Usain Bolt always want to run and be a 100-meter sprinter? Just I don't know. Maybe it's a calling, or maybe it's not. In the same respect, I don't know, because that maybe absolves those that aren't political. Because that's not for me, so I won't do it. I think, I became politically aware, radically aware through the people I've met, the communities I've been in. Theatre definitely radicalised me in lots of respects, because of what you can put on, what you can't put on, what you can say, what you can't say, what will appeal and sell tickets and what won't appeal. What's too much? What's the moral compass of the theatre if we say this in a play? What is it if we say that in a play? I think above anything, politics or what have you, the thing that I was, and I think most schools don't encourage, which I think they need to in the education system, is critical thought. That's it. It's rather than just accepting things as they are, or, I need to know this because that's how it is. Critical thought obviously encourages you to question everything. Theatre encourages you to question everything. And I don't think there's a limit to that nature of questioning. I think sometimes even theatre, some shows go, oh no, that's it. We questioned it and now this is the answer. Even the answer brings about more questions. And from there, politics, that's the whole thing. Some people will come out of politics and say, this is how things are, this is how it should be. Why? Who says that? Who are they to say that? So more than anything else, I developed critical thought. And it wasn't necessarily school that did that, it was theatre, and then the people in theatre that made me do that. Because we're constantly challenging, constantly questioning society, people, how they behave. And politics is part of that. I don't know, you could question other things. I saw a show in Berlin not long ago, and that was purely about silence. It didn't really have a political element to it. It was just kind of purely about silence, the ability to have silence, maybe on a personal level. I thought, wow, silence is political as hell. Because in history, who gets to decide what history is and who's silenced? Who gets to decide who the heroes are and who the villains are? Who doesn't get to speak at all in that matter of fact? Hamilton definitely is a historical thing, but it's political. Where are the voices of the natives, for instance? They're not quite in that conversation at all. And history, and who gets to manufacture and produce history? That's political. How we see history is political. How we see ourselves right now is political. So I don't know. I'm just aware of politics in pervading every aspect of my life. Some people try and reject that and say, nah, politics is this, and I'm that. Nah, man.
You think you'd ever get into politics yourself too?
As an actual thing to do, I think there's maybe better people for it. I think you never know, man. You never know in a respect, but in a way, already are involved in some way, shape, or form. Maybe I should be, to really be in it, local councillor, so on and so forth. But we're all political, man. We all have something to say. We all represent where we're from, and there's communities that we are leaders of in our own respects. I think no one should shy away from that, or just try and view, like, you yourself are a leader in your own respect. I don't, the time of this man here and that man there, the Martin Luther's, it's a collective thing now, man. We all have a collective consciousness, which is increased in terms of how much information travels. So it's incumbent upon us, and I think it's incumbent upon individuals. Maybe it's incumbent upon individuals to raise that awareness among their communities, but I don't think, we're looking for heroes. We're looking for community now more than ever. And that in itself is the heroic act. That's what I put out.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's definitely a lot of food for thought there. Just as a last question, what are you hoping the audiences will take away with them when they come and see London Tide?
Empathy. Yeah, more than anything else. That's what we are, ambassadors of empathy as artists. So hopefully you feel something. I'm not sure. You take away what you will, but hopefully it's a good thing. Hopefully it's something, or maybe it's something that inspires you to do or want good in your life or the world around you. I guess namely love. Love is a core theme and central to the piece. We can see dysfunctionality. We can see false ideas of love. And how our lives are so ruled by having it or lacking it. So I hope that there's a reassessment of what love looks like in each person's life, and recognizing it as a radical act towards freedom. Does the play definitely say that? I don't know, man. That's just me wanting something. That's just me wanting that to maybe somehow be gleaned. I think Eugene and Lizzie have a great ending in terms of what love looks like. Love is not a possession. Love does not belong to one person. Love is an act. In the words of bell hooks, to extend oneself for the nurturing of one's own or another's spiritual growth. So maybe we can glean that from it. I think that's an act that Eugene does for Lizzie and Lizzie does for herself. Self-love, the love of others, man. It's not a selfish thing. For the community, maybe. I've spoken enough now. I tend to look for.
Lots to agree with there, definitely lots to think about. But yeah, Jamael Westman, it was such a lovely pleasure talking to you and
Nice
listening to you speak. Thank you so much.
Thank you, mate. Nice to meet you, Carlos, man. And thanks to all your viewers.